Welcome to Farm Source Seasonal Focus, created as a way to share knowledge and advice on the season ahead. We're vets, agronomists, vendor reps, our team of technical sales reps, and sustainable dairy advisors, but most importantly, fellow farmers, share their insights in an easily digestible way.
Welcome to the second episode of Farm Source's Seasonal Focus series. In this season, Facial Eczema, it is about helping you take a more proactive approach. And you would have heard from episode 1, we had Emma Cuttins providing an academic view there, head of research for VetEnt, and then on the ground daily, working alongside farmers, is Farm Source's TSR Nick Anderson from Hamilton. Nick, firstly, do you believe that farmers in the Waikato region that you operate in understand the importance of facial eczema to start with?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of our farmers who have been doing it season on season. So they've got a pretty clear understanding of facial eczema when it arrives. I think the big thing for me is, are we seeing it as preventative solutions as they believe they are doing? So
it's more of a, I'll just deal with it when it hits me approach.
Yeah, I do feel it. I'll wait for the Gribbles report to come out and then I might make a start on that. But there's a lot of build up to it. You know, we look at, the ability to, we always talk about low doses to start with. And I think it's key to understand that those low doses aren't actually giving you any treatment at that stage. It's all about getting the cows used to it. And whatever system or method that you're using to apply zinc to your herd.
And preventative too, we do it in so many other ways on farm where we, make hay while the sun shines for later. Why animal health prevention, do you think, is something that if it's out of sight, it's out of mind?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, if we look at facial eczema, a lot of guys will say, I haven't got a facial eczema problem. My cows don't bust out. I don't see peeling udders and hiding in trees and running back to the shed to get shelter, which are the effects of this. But the statistics out there, if you've got 5% of your herd is showing clinical signs, so you're seeing skin peeling, you're seeing them stamp around in the milking shed because their teats are so sore as the machines are on it, you're looking at 95% of your herd is had some form of subclinical exposure to facial eczema spores.
Liking it to a volcano. If you see a little bit of smoke, what's about to come? Exactly.
And, we've got liver damage happening right there, right then. And it only needs, we could be waiting till it's 20,000, which is the target that we say to sort of start our treatments. But before that, we've got cows ingesting spores.
Do you have a level where you are suggesting early in the year, that if it's starting to get there, start doing this now? Is there sort of a really measurable?
Yeah, I think once we sort of start seeing some form of measurement come on those Gribbles report, and I know in the Waikato that's a sort of a big go-to for our farmers, is to give them that first sort of indication. But it's about those weather conditions. I think we've been very, very lucky in the last few years where we've had these long dry periods. Not great, but from a facial eczema season, extremely good because the spores have stayed like they've been there, absolutely. But we're seeing this year, potentially, hopefully the reports are saying that we may have a wetter summer. And that combined with the amount of silage that we're cutting right now, these spores live in that rotting matter at the base of the pasture. And, we don't pick up every blade of grass when we're topping in front of the cows or when we're cutting silage. So there's a huge risk there. That material's sitting there, starting to decay. So as soon as we get those warm, humid days, that's when the risk really starts. So as long as we've got something in place before then and we're looking at it as a preventative, not a cure.
Yeah, so we in episode 1 we spoke to Emma Cuttins and she's lived and breathed facial eczema for a decade. Incredible what she knows about the disease. There is a lot of different ways to administer. Would you be able to give our listeners and viewers a feel around not only what you can use, but how to administer?
Yeah, sure. So I suppose with a lot of the products that we supply at Farm Source, there's always a sort of a good, better, best option. With zinc, it comes down to a lot of infrastructure. So various farmers have various ways. Look, and if we're to look and sort of go down the list of what we have, best for us is a zinc bolus such as Time Capsule. From there, we go into that better. So that's when we're looking at zinc added in to feeds. Those can be in the form of powdered solutions or even sort of pelleted solutions such as Mineral Boost. The likes of Seals actually have a mineral pellet, which they can add into their blends as well. Then you've got powdered. So those are the best ways. And in-shed feeder, of course, where every cow has the feed placed in front of them over that feed pad situation. We've got your old bossy girls that will push those younger ones out. So we can see some variability within there. And then what is quite a classic for our farmers in the Waikato is we all have dosatrons. But there is a big risk with dosatrons in that, firstly, we need to be getting those cows used to the taste of zinc. Okay, they don't like the taste of zinc. So there's products on the market such as Caramello, which is a...
is it actually called Caramello?
It's called Caramello, and it smells delicious.
Wow.
Yeah, it actually smells really yummy, but it is actually a taste mask. I think that's how you'd sort of put it, a taste masker. So it takes the taste of the way, because we all know that, we need our cows to drink water.
What are some of the disadvantages, though, of putting zinc in water?
The biggest disadvantage is really about the variability of intake. So we can have the dose going correctly, what we predict is correct through the dosatron, but there can be just a huge variability of how much a cow will drink through a day. I think a clear example of this is if we have a rainy day, there'll be puddles there. Now, as we've been mentioned, zinc can leave a taste in the water that the cows do not like. There's products to help mask that, which are great. But if there's an alternative to that trough of water, such as a puddle, a cow will drink it. It could be higher moisture contents in the feeds that they're getting. So they're getting enough from that, and so they choose not to drink as much water as they like. So
they won't be getting the right dose if it's just a per animal basis across
correct.
the herd.
And, there's a big part around if you can measure it, you can manage it. And I think there's some myth to what our estimation of our cow weights are. We sort of take the herd's 450.
Yeah.
But is it really? You've got younger girls, you've got older girls, you've got bigger frame girls, So there's quite a variability. So, this is a real tricky part of this facial eczema and zinc dosing is, how do I get it right?
And also, too, with the recommendations as well. I mean, what's the best way of going about knowing how much for the weight of my animals, if I am weighing them as they're coming across and making sure I'm drenching them the correct amount or bolusing the right size?
Quite honestly, whenever I get asked that question by a farmer, my go-to is please ask your vet.
Yeah.
Your vet is up to date on what the latest research is at and what those doses are. It can vary from bag to bag if you're using it in water. So, talk to your vet. If you're lucky enough to have Emma, then you're very lucky indeed. But look, we've got, through Farm Source, we've got access to our own vets with Fonterra as well. So we've always got the ability to go to them and just check, what's right and how much. But the biggest thing for me is really just having an accurate estimation of your girls' weights. And if you can weigh them, fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So effectively, right at the top, zinc bolus, the time capsules, so it's going straight in. Now, in terms of administering that, is it physically quite challenging to get them in and down?
Yeah, I mean, there's an applicator which you buy with them, right? And it's, if you've got a good system set up, then, no, it's not that hard. I mean, you're going to be sweating by the end of it, absolutely. And of course, we see a lot of farmers, particularly with those young animals and those small animals. It's a great option because you can bolus them. They're a little easier to handle than your old big cows, but you can get them in there, send them out to the paddock at grazing as well. Get your graziers to do that, or head out to your grazier's place and get it done. So there's an applicator and get it down there.
And how often am I doing this?
Yeah, generally they're on a monthly basis, and this is where the timing has to be good.
Yeah, so timing-wise, January?
Yeah, it's not necessarily January. We've got to look at the conditions. It needs to be those hot, humid days. What's going to grow mold? What's going to grow a fungus? When do you see the mushrooms popping up? It's those hot, humid days, and that's when those fungus are sending the spores out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes sense. Is this going to be super expensive? I mean, in comparison to losing cows in production, probably not.
Absolutely not. If anyone's been through seeing cows with facial eczema, it's terrible. I've been there. It's awful. It's time consuming, but more than anything, it's costly, right? We're losing cows. We all know the value of a cow.
Talking about farmers that you work closely with as a TSR in Farm Source throughout the year and walking beside them to make those decisions. We have coming up in the series one of your farming clients, Julene Fisher. I mean, talk us through your scenario with her and giving that type of advice.
Yeah, so my contacts with Julene were first around looking at crops in summer. And that was sort of a method of her feeding her cows through summer. But there's actually a really good advantage of that around facial eczema. Yeah. Because while we've got cows on crops, and if we put them on there first, then they're not actually going into those paddocks hungry and grazing down hard to where those spores are and ingesting them. And then, it's those conversations moving on from there is, what are we doing about facial eczema this year? Hey, let's have a look at what we've got going on. Julene was great. She was easy. She was already well all over it and using those time capsules and then just helping with her herd with a little bit of zinc in her palm kernel. So, so it's about stepping through it. But more than anything, like, we're there for our farmers,
I do want to have a chat to you about this because we are talking a lot about zinc, but crops and pasture, I mean, this is where this disease is living and these cows are ingesting it from. Is there sort of any latest advice that is happening that farmers need to know about that they can help reduce sporidesmin within their pasture? Yeah.
So, again, it's about being preventative in some way. There are some actual fungicides out there which farmers can apply. But the key for those is the timing has to be right. So we need to get that before the spores actually start getting distributed. But just having a crop, I mean, not only is it good sense around, just knowing that you've got some summer feed there, particularly with the summers we're seeing around the country at the moment. It's also about just that if you can stop that overgrazing in your paddocks, you are going to have a better reduction in ingestion of spores.
Because they live in the bottom third, right?
Correct. Yeah. Correct. And it's around living in that dry rotting matter, which we all know that we're going to have as that dry matter rises and we see grass starting to go to seed. We are seeing a lot more trash in the paddocks. And that's just that prime environment. We've got dead, rotting matter. It's warm, it's humid. So if we can stop those
like
cows.
A horrible place.
Oh, I know. Terrible, right? Terrible. Good for a spore, but not for us. But if we can just stop those farmers overgrazing, hey, look, not only is it about spores, but your paddocks are going to bounce back so much better once those first rains come in autumn. So there's a whole lot of little additives. It's not just about, looking after your cows and not taking spores. It's a lot about what are we looking at and constantly looking for what's coming in front of us. I suppose that's the advice.
Farming's all about pulling all these different levers to the right amount all the time, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, I think, what I'm noticing with the environment that we're seeing year on year, you talk about, make hay while the sun shines. How many farmers actually make hay these days, So we're looking at that because, it's changing year on year. And I'm finding, 5 years I've been doing this, I don't think there's one season that's I've said the same thing year on year.
Yes, exactly. And you've got to be nimble. Thank you so much for being with us on this episode. Awesome. Nick Anderson is the TSR working out of the Hamilton branch in the Waikato and walking alongside farmers to, as I was saying, with these levers, work out which ones to pull. What I've learned so far in the first 2 episodes is it's about prevention. And that the tools are there. We're actually going to catch up again in the next episode with Emma from episode 1, the head of research at VetEnt. And I want to get more into this research project that has been going on around the significant milk production loss associated with facial eczema.
Thanks for watching Farm Source Seasonal Focus. If you want to know more about the content featured in this episode, contact your local technical sales rep or talk to our store staff.